The Law of One, Book 4, Session 87, May 12th, 1982. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. I communicate now. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. The distortions of the physical complex are unchanged. The vital energy levels are greatly enhanced. Questioner, thank you. In considering what was mentioned in the last session about the sensor, I've thought about the fact that the position of the origin of the smoke changes approximately 6 inches horizontally. Would it be better to have a sensor in a single horizontal smoking position? Ra, I am Ra. This alteration would be a helpful one given that the sensor is virgin. Questioner, what would be the optimum geometrical arrangement of sensor, chalice, and candle with respect to the Bible and table and the positions that we now have them in? Ra, I am Ra. Both chalice and candle occupy the optimal configuration with respect to the book most closely aligned with the Law of One in the distortion complexes of this instrument. It is optimal to have the sensor to the rear of this book and centered at the spine of its open configuration. Questioner, would a position directly between the chalice and the candle be optimum, then, for the sensor? Ra, I am Ra. This is not an exact measurement, since both chalice and candle are irregularly shaped. However, speaking roughly, this is correct. Questioner, thank you. What is the present situation with respect to our 5th density negative companion? Ra, I am Ra. This entity has withdrawn for a period of restoration of its polarity. Questioner, would you expand upon the concept of the acquisition of polarity by this particular entity, its use, specifically, of this polarity other than the simple, obvious need for 6th density harvest, if this is possible, please? Ra, I am Ra. We would. The nature of the densities above your own is that a purpose may be said to be shared by both positive and negative polarities. This purpose is the acquisition of the ability to welcome more and more the less and less distorted love light and light love of the one infinite Creator. Upon the negative path, the wisdom density is one in which power over others has been refined until it is approaching absolute power. Any force, such as the force your group and those of Ra offer, which cannot be controlled by the power of such a negative 5th density mind-body-spirit complex, then depolarizes the entity which has not controlled other self. It is not within your conscious selves to stand against such refined power, but rather it has been through the harmony, the mutual love, and the honest calling for aid from the forces of light which have given you the shield and buckler. Questioner, what is the environmental situation of this particular 5th density entity, and how does he work with 4th density negative entities in order to establish power and control? What is his particular philosophy with respect to himself as Creator and with respect to the use of the 1st distortion, and the extension of the 1st distortion to the 4th density negative? I hope this isn't too complex a question. Ra, I am Ra. The environment of your companion is that of the rock, the cave, the place of barrenness, for this is the density of wisdom, and that which is needed may be thought and received. To this entity, very little is necessary upon the physical, if you will, or space-time complex of distortions. Such an entity spends its consciousness within the realms of time-space in an attempt to learn the ways of wisdom through the utmost use of the powers and resources of the self. Since the self is the Creator, the wisdom density provides many informative and fascinating experiences for the negatively polarized entity. In some respects, One may see a more lucid early attachment to wisdom from those of negative polarity, as the nexus of positions of consciousness upon which wisdom is laid is simpler. The relationship of such an entity to fourth density negative entities is one of the more powerful and the less powerful. The negative path posits slavery of the less powerful as a means of learning the desire to serve the self to the extent that the will is brought to bear. It is in this way that polarity is increased in the negative sense. Thus, fourth density entities are willing slaves of such a fifth density entity, there being no doubt whatsoever of the relative power of each. Questioner: a reflection of this could be seen in our density in many of those leaders who instigate war and have followers who support, in total conviction, that the direction of conquest is correct. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. Any organization which demands obedience without question upon the basis of relative power is functioning according to the above described plan. Questioner: one point that I am not clear on is the understanding and use of the first distortion by fifth and fourth density negative entities in manipulating third density entities. I would like to know how the first distortion affects the attempts to carry out the conquest of third density entities and the attempt to add them, under the premise of the first distortion, to their social memory complexes. Would you expand upon that concept, please? Ra: I am Ra. This latter plan is not one of which fourth density negative social memory complexes are capable. The fourth density habit is that of offering temptations and of energizing pre-existing distortions. Fourth density entities lack the subtlety and magical practice which the fifth density experience offers. Questioner: it seems, though, that in the case of many UFO contacts that have occurred on this planet, that there must be some knowledge of and use of the first distortion. The fourth density entities have carefully remained aloof and anonymous, you might say, for the most part, so that no proof in a concrete way of their existence is available. How are they oriented with respect to this type of contact? Ra: I am Ra. We misperceived your query, thinking it was directed towards this particular type of contact. The nature of the fourth density's observance of the free will distortion while pursuing the seeding of the third density thought patterns is material which has already been covered. That which can be offered of the negatively oriented information is offered. It is altered to the extent that the entity receiving such negative information is of positive orientation. Thus, many such contacts are of a mixed nature. Questioner: I'm sorry for getting confused on my question here and not asking it correctly. There's a philosophical point of central importance that I'm trying to clear up here. It has to do with the fact that fourth density negative seems to be aware of the first distortion. They are in a non-veiled condition, and they seem to use this knowledge of the first distortion to maintain the situation that they maintain in contacts with this planet. I'm trying to extract their ability to understand the mechanism of the first distortion and the consequences of the veiling process and still remain in a mental configuration of separation on the negative path. I hope that I've made myself clear here. I'm having a hard time asking this question. Ra: I am Ra. The answer may still not satisfy the questioner. We ask that you pursue it until you are satisfied. The fourth density negative entity has made the choice available to each at third density harvest. It is aware of the full array of possible methods of viewing the universe of the one creator, and it is convinced that the ignoring and non-use of the green ray energy center will be the method most efficient in providing harvestability of fourth density. Its operations among those of third density which have not yet made this choice are designed to offer to each the opportunity to consider the self-serving polarity and its possible attractiveness. Questioner: it seems to me that this is a service to others' action in offering the possibility of the self-serving path. What is the relative effect of polarization in this action? I don't understand that. Ra. I am Ra. In your armed bands, a large group marauds and pillages successfully. The success of the privates is claimed by the corporals, the success of corporals by sergeants, then lieutenants, captains, majors, and finally the commanding general. Each successful temptation, each successful harvestable entity is a strengthener of the power and polarity of the fourth density social memory complex which has had this success. Questioner. If one mind-body-spirit complex is harvested from third density to a fourth density social memory complex, is the total power of the social memory complex before the absorption of this single entity doubled when this entity is absorbed? Ra. I am Ra. No. Questioner. The law of doubling, then, does not work in this way. How much does the power of the social memory complex increase relative to this single entity that is harvested and absorbed into it? Ra. I am Ra. If one entity in the social memory complex is responsible for this addition to its being, that mind-body-spirit complex will absorb, in linear fashion, the power contained in the, shall we say, recruit. If a subgroup is responsible, the power is then this subgroup's. Only very rarely is the social memory complex of negative polarity capable of acting totally as one being. The loss of polarity due to this difficulty, to which we have previously referred to as a kind of spiritual entropy, is quite large. Questioner. Then assuming that a single negatively oriented entity is responsible for the recruiting of a harvested third density entity and adds its polarity to his negative polarity and power, what type of ability or what type of benefit is this, and how is it used by the entity? Ra. I am Ra. The so-called pecking order is immediately challenged, and the entity with increased power exercises that power to control more other selves and to advance within the social memory complex structure. Questioner. How is this power measured? How is it obvious that this entity has gained this additional power? Ra. I am Ra. In some cases, there is a kind of battle. This is a battle of wills, and the weapons consist of the light that can be formed by each contender. In most cases where the shift of power has been obvious, it simply is acknowledged, and those seeking benefit from associating with this newly, more powerful entity aid it in rising within the structure. Questioner. Thank you. We noticed a possibility of confusion between the term mind-body-spirit and mind-body-spirit complex in the last session. Were there a couple of misuses of those terms in shifting one for the other? Ra. I am Ra. There was an error in transmission. The use of the term mind-body-spirit should refer to those entities dwelling in third density prior to the veiling process. The term mind-body-spirit complex referring to those entities dwelling in third density after the veiling process. We also discover a failure on our part to supply the term complex when speaking of body after the veiling. Please correct these errors. Also, we ask that you keep a vigilant watch over these transmissions for any errors and question without fail, as it is our intention to provide as undistorted a series of sound vibration complexes as is possible. This entity, though far better cleared of distortions towards the pain flares when prepared by those mental vibration complexes you call prayer, is still liable to fluctuation due to its pre-incarnative body complex distortions and the energizing of them by those of negative polarity. Questioner. Thank you. We will make the corrections. In the last session, you made the statement that before the veiling, sexual energy transfer was always possible. I would like to know what you meant by "it was always possible" and why it was not always possible after the veiling, just to clear up that point. Ra. I am Ra. We believe that we grasp your query and will use the analogy in your culture of the battery which lights the flashlight bulb. Two working batteries placed in a series always offer the potential of the bulb's illumination. After the veiling, to continue this gross analogy, the two batteries being placed not in series would then offer no possible illumination of the bulb. Many mind-body-spirit complexes after the veiling have, through blockages, done the equivalent of reversing the battery. Questioner: what was the primary source of the blockages that caused the battery reversal? Ra: I am Ra. Please query more specifically as to the mind-body-spirits or mind-body-spirit complexes about which you request information. Questioner: before the veil, there was knowledge of the bulb lighting technique, shall we say. After the veil, some experiments created a bulb lighting. Some resulted in no bulb lighting. Other than the fact that information was not available on methods of lighting the bulb, was there some root cause of the experiments that resulted in no bulb lighting? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: what was this root cause? Ra: I am Ra. The root cause of blockage is the lack of the ability to see the other self as the creator, or to phrase this differently, the lack of love. Questioner: in our particular illusion, the sexual potential for the male seems to peak somewhere prior to the age 20, and the female's peak is some 10 years later. What is the cause of this difference in peaking sexual energy? Ra: I am Ra. We must make clear distinction between the yellow ray, third density, chemical bodily complex, and the body complex, which is a portion of the mind-body-spirit complex. The male, as you call this polarity, has an extremely active yellow ray desire at the space-time in its incarnation, when its sperm is the most viable and full of the life-giving spermato. Thusly, the red ray seeks to reproduce most thickly at the time when this body is most able to fulfill the red ray requirements. The yellow ray, chemical body complex of the female, as you call this polarity, must needs have a continued and increasing desire for the sexual intercourse, for it can only conceive once in one 15 to 18 month period, given that it carries the conceived body complex, bears it, and suckles it. This is draining to the physical body of yellow ray. To compensate for this, the desire increases so that the yellow ray body is predisposed to continue in sexual congress, thus fulfilling its red ray requirement to reproduce as thickly as possible. The more, shall we say, integral sexuality or polarity of the body complex, which is a portion of the mind-body-spirit complex, does not concern itself with these yellow ray manifestations, but rather follows the ways of the seeking of energy transfer and the furthering of aid and service to others or to the self. Questioner: in addition, why is the ratio of male to female orgasms so heavily loaded on the side of the male? Ra: I am Ra. We refer now to the yellow ray physical body, or, if you will, body complex. At this level, the distinction is unimportant. The male orgasm which motivates the sperm forward to meet its ovum is essential for the completion of the red ray desire to propagate the species. The female orgasm is unnecessary. Again, as mind, body, spirit complexes begin to use the sexual energy transfer to learn, to serve, and to glorify the one infinite creator, the function of the female orgasm becomes more clear. Questioner: what was this ratio before the veil? Ra: I am Ra. The ratio of male to female orgasms before the veil was closer to 1:1 by a great deal, as the metaphysical value of the female orgasm was clear and without shadow. Questioner: is it meaningful to give this ratio in early fourth density, and if so, would you do that? Ra: I am Ra. In many ways, it is quite meaningless to speak of orgasm of male and female in higher densities, as the character and nature of orgasm becomes more and more naturally a function of the mind-body-spirit complex as a unit. It may be said that the veil in fourth density is lifted and the choice has been made. In positive polarities, true sharing is almost universal. In negative polarities, true blockages so that the conqueror obtains orgasm, the conquered almost never is almost universal. In each case, you may see the function of the sexual portion of experience as being a most efficient means of polarization. Questioner: in our illusion, we have physical definitions for possible transfers of energy. We label them as the conversion of potential to kinetic or kinetic to heat and examine this with respect to the increasing entropy. When we speak of sexual energy transfers and other more basic forms of energy, I am always at a loss to properly use, you might say, the terms since I am not understanding, and possibly can't understand, the basic form of energy that we speak of. However, I intuit that this is the energy of pure vibration. That is, at the basic level of our illusion, that vibration between the space and time portion of the space-time continuum, and yet somehow is transferred into our illusion in a more basic form than that. Could you expand on this area for me, please? Ra: I am Ra. Yes. Questioner: would you do that? Ra: I am Ra. You are correct in assuming that the energy of which we speak in discussing sexual energy transfers is a form of vibratory bridge between space-time and time-space. Although this distinction is not apart from that which follows may shed light upon that basic statement. Due to the veiling process, the energy transferred from male to female is different than that transferred from female to male. Due to the polarity difference of the mind, body, spirit complexes of male and female, the male stores physical energy, the female mental and mental emotional energy. When third density sexual energy transfer is completed, the male will have offered the discharge of physical energy. The female is, thereby, refreshed, having far less physical vitality. At the same time, if you will use this term, the female discharges the efflux of its stored mental and mental emotional energy, thereby offering inspiration, healing, and blessing to the male, which by nature is less vital in this area. At this time, may we ask for one more full query? Questioner: why is the male and female nature different? Ra: I am Ra. When the veiling process was accomplished, to the male polarity was attracted the matrix of the mind, and to the female, the potentiator of the mind. To the male, the potentiator of the body. To the female, the matrix of the body. May we ask if there are any brief queries before we close this working? Questioner: is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Ra: I am Ra. We shall find the suggested readjustment of the sensor helpful. The alignments are good. You have been conscientious, my friends. We leave you now in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing merrily in the power and in the ineffable peace of the one infinite Creator, Adonai.